Welcome to the Retrospect podcast, a show where people come together from different walks of life and discuss a topic from their generation's perspective. My name is Ian, and as always, I'm joined by Stoney.
Hello.
And Jason.
Hello, everyone.
How's everyone doing?
I've had a good week so far. It's, I should say, it was a good weekend since we record on Mondays. So I mean,
Right.
we're talking about how our week has gone since the last time we recorded.
Yeah.
It's been great. Weather's been dry.
Oh, yeah.
I'm hearing we might get some rain by the end of this week.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe. I'm going to tell you, my grass is about dead. I didn't even try to even run the lawnmower because I didn't want to even touch it until
And with that little cool snap that came through,
it's dry as a
it's
bone.
dry as
it's
can
a
be.
lot of fire alerts right now because of all it takes is a little spark, and here we go. But
that was I finished wrapping on that production I was a part of this weekend, and it was such a bittersweet feeling. We were all tired from doing a whole bunch of work on it, so it's been nice to just we don't have to worry about it anymore. But at the same time, specifically me, I don't think I'm going to run in their circles very often, so I just don't know how often I'm going to come across those people. But some of them were really awesome, and I think more than anything, I made some really great friends through that whole process, which is kind of the sad part about it all. I was like, oh man, those are some great people, and I need to actively try to be a part of their lives moving forward. But whenever we were doing the production, the backstage is not super well insulated. So during some of the matinee, early day shows, it was hot back there. But for those cooler nights, it was really nice back there to be, in costume and doing all that stuff. And so that cold weather was definitely a blessing for a lot of us. But yeah.
Yeah, it's been the mornings have been nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was Friday. I got out there early and I'm building up for this full marathon I'm running. So I got out there and ran 13 miles.
Oh my gosh!
But I started running a little after 7:00.
What is your?
So I finished up. It was after 9.
I was gonna say
9 something. So I was running for over 2 hours.
Get out. Okay, so that was what I was gonna ask was what is your average mile you can run in time wise
I think I was averaging just under 10 minutes a mile. Wow. I think when it all kind of plays out, but it's kind of you got to stay on the schedule to build yourself up to that point. So this week will be a little less, and then the following week I'll bump it up even higher. So not this Friday, but the following Friday. My goal will probably be pushing 15 or 16 miles.
Wow.
So, it's going to get to a point where I'm going to have to get out there at 6 in the morning because it'll take me 4 hours to finish up where I need to go. So the biggest challenge I have right now is just the mental game of, you get to 2.5 hours. It's I'm still running. I still got another hour to 2 hours to go. And
I feel like I've driven, I've taken a road trip and driven 4 hours and was I feel like we're in the car for forever. I can only imagine just running.
Just running. I mean,
getting halfway through and going,
luckily, I have some good podcasts to listen to.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Do you listen to podcasts or do you listen to music or what?
I actually don't listen to music anymore. I used to. Yeah. Now it's nothing but I have a prayer app that I listen to some, and then once I kind of finish that up, then I move into other podcasts that I like. Yeah. That I believe it or not, I listen to ours.
Yeah.
I listen to some others that I really enjoy, because I can really learn a lot of interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Possibly giving us ideas for future episodes, but yeah. So, but I mean, you have to keep yourself.
Mentally engaged.
To be running that long.
Yeah.
And so I'm so I did that last Friday, but luckily the weather has been nice. So the mornings are cool.
Yeah.
and it just gets warmer than a day. I mean, I think we call that Indian summer.
Yeah.
We call it. So, which, believe it or not, I don't mind a warm day if the mornings are cool.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I mean, I can live. To me, I think that's the ideal climate. If it would always get down to, the upper 50s every morning, even if it heats up to 90, 95 during the day, I would be fine with that.
That was the summer season where I lived at in Canada. Like the nights, you'd have like really cool, dry nights,
comfortable.
And then for the morning it would warm up, and then it may get upwards of 70. Probably it would just barely touch 80 sometimes during the hottest part of the summer, and then it would drop back down again. It's crazy.
Well, we can't get that down here where we live. So
not in the swamp.
No, it's not. So
I'll never forget that year I came home from Aspen, Colorado.
You told us about that,
on Christmas Eve. -11 in Aspen. So I had winter clothes with me. I got off the plane in New Orleans, and it was 85 degrees on Christmas Eve. Yeah. It was like I got off the plane and got smacked in the concrete, facing with a concrete wall. Yep. It was just, oh my God, 100% humidity.
You're coming from a mile or so up higher in elevation,
and a 17% humidity
down to one of below sea level. Yep. Speaking of, what do you think is the lowest? I learned this.
Okay.
Speaking of sea level, and just kind of what I call Cliff Clavin lore.
Okay.
What is the city with the lowest below sea level in the world?
Salt Lake City.
Nope.
Is it in America or is it in like another
It's
country?
worldwide. No, it's not
worldwide.
So I don't know then at that point.
Jericho.
Really?
It's like 800 feet below sea level.
Wow.
They're in trouble if the water's rise.
No kidding, huh? So
man.
I found that out the other day. I was that's interesting. But yeah, Jericho.
Wow.
And it's actually the city with the longest living inhabitants city in the world.
Wow.
It goes back 10,000 BC. They have found evidence of human civilization. The longest occupied city in the world.
Okay, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. So just for our listeners.
Right. A little fun fact.
But I really wanted to kind of lead into our topic today is organ transplants and that whole industry. And imagine yourself that you're in need of a new organ, whether it might be lungs, a heart, a liver. You call your doctor, you schedule a date, you go to the hospital, you walk in, they show you a machine, and they show you either lungs that are breathing, a heart that's beating, or a new pancreas, or whatever the case may be that looks healthy and well, and so that's what's fixing to go in you. And you go in, you get the procedure done, there's no rejection, and you go and live a very healthy life and functionally normal.
What future book is this?
Actually, that is what the hope of the new technology as it comes on board.
All the clone stuff?
Well, it's not cloning. It's actually tissue regeneration, and they are making some headway in that regard. So, with that being said, we came up with this topic because we hear about it because we all sign up. Either you sign up or you don't. Right. I know here where we live, on your driver's license. Mm-hmm. I believe in some parts of the world, matter of fact, I was reading something in England now, they are fixing to adopt where everybody automatically is enrolled in organ donation, and you have to make the option to opt out. Mm-hmm. So...
and you see, Canada's kind of doing the same thing. I have that further down in my notes. I need to find it. With the MAID program, they are pushing people that need transplants of one organ to go ahead and use the medical assisted in dying program, the MAID program, and then those people are automatically donating their organs also. I had a friend of mine here in South Louisiana who needed a transplant, and he went to the doctors. He had some brain issues, and he went to the doctors, and they brought him to this like cryo room or something, and there was 15 or 20 brains in this cryo stuff. And they said, well, you have to pick something out. And so he saw this one average looking brain, and he said, tell me about this one. And he says, well, that brain is $1 million. And he said, why is that brain so expensive? And he says, well, that was a Yale student who was in an accident and lost his brain. And we know what, a Yale student is capable of. And so he went down the road and saw this other brain that had a few more wrinkles and a little bit bigger. And he says, what about this one? And he said, well, this is a Harvard student, and that's about $1.5 million brain. Same reasons, we know what they're capable of. And so the guy says, well, I kind of need to go in another direction. And he saw this little bitty small brain with no wrinkles, no nothing on it. And he says, well, what about this one? And he says, well, actually, that's a $10 million brain. And he looked at the doctor and said, why is that one so expensive? And he says, well, that's a student from Texas A&M, and the brain's never been used before.
Gee, there's always a Texas A&M joke.
That's right.
Considering what just happened this past weekend, but
I'm
that's
sorry.
neither
I had
here
to
nor
do
there.
that one to y'all. Sorry, I had to do it. Didn't know how I was going to work it in, but.
So, what do y'all? I mean, what's y'all's thoughts on this whole issue? I'm just curious. Are y'all organ donor?
I am an organ donor. I have a couple of friends. I had a friend of mine from California who actually had a double lung transplant. He was a pilot. He was a Gulfstream pilot, and something happened, and his lungs just deteriorated. And he's one of the few people that successfully had a double lung transplant. Most of the time, it's just one lung or a part or something. Very few people can survive a double lung transplant.
Right.
And it was 6 or 8 months. He's doing fantastic. They even allowed him to get on a plane and fly. This was so successful. And then he went down to see his daughter in San Diego. He lived in Portland. Went down to see his daughter in San Diego and caught COVID and never left the hospital and passed in the hospital. But it was amazing the process that he had to go through to get this double lung transplant.
Well, this whole, in kind of looking at information on, that way I would have some things to talk about on this episode. It's interesting. I did listen to some TED Talks on this topic, some other just YouTube videos. And, of course, I've got some statistics to share with our audience. But, some of the three main problems in that we have, because, while organ transplant is probably one of the greatest medical advances in the latter half of the 20th century, because, some of this, 50 years before would have been science fiction. It does come with a lot of challenges in doing this. And the problem is long term. The short term seems to be successful. I'm looking at some stats right now. Right now, the 1 year national survival rate for a heart transplant is 91.66%, followed by heart, kidney. I'm seeing 96% survival rate, and liver 94%. So the problem comes in as time goes on, and one of the more fundamental issues that recipients of transplants confront is something that we need, and that's our immune response. When you introduce a large mass of foreign proteins in your body, the human immune system is going to react, and it's going to attack that because it's programmed to, this is a foreign substance and we need to attack it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, then what happens, it attacks the graft, and then ultimately the organ just ultimately fails over time. I think the numbers I saw, the average lifespan of a transplant is somewhere around 12 to 15 years after transplant, from what I've been able to read.
But you see, that's one of the things that with my friend telling me too, not only do you have the transplant and then you have to worry about it, being rejected,
right.
But he was also on $1,800 to $2,500 a month in medicines to help stop that or slow that down.
These anti,
and that was for the rest of his life.
Anti-immune, these drug, what they call suppressors.
Suppressors, yeah.
And unfortunately, that comes with its own risk, because not only when it suppresses the immune system, it can't target that specific thing. It suppresses the immune system in general. And so, unfortunately, what they have found is as time goes on, common illnesses that would be no big deal for most people become very big deals for these people. And not only that, the chances of cancer coming go up dramatically, because normally your immune system would actually checks a lot of things that would happen in your body. And that's not happening with these drugs. And you've got to take them religiously every day. You can't miss a day.
And that's what my friend's wife said. He had COVID before, and it didn't even hardly bother him. But this time he got it, he never left the hospital. And it's because of those reasons right there.
Yeah, they're saying right now, I'm reading here, it says lungs is the most difficult organ to transplant.
Wow.
So, and the most sought after are kidneys, followed by livers.
Really?
Well, there's a couple of things that we need to look at when you're looking at this. There's two types of organ donation, and one is to help people with new organs, and the other one is for science. So when you pass, your organs go, you donate your body to science. But then, like with the kidneys and stuff like that, then there's also two types of organ donation. One when you've passed, and one when you're still alive. You have two kidneys. You can actually donate a kidney to somebody. I have a friend of mine right now who's on the list that needs a kidney. And I can't because of all my medical stuff, but had I not had gone through all of this, I would have taken the test to see if one of my kidneys would have been good. So you can do that too. And so some of the organs like kidney, and I think part of the liver too, if I'm not mistaken, because a liver regenerates itself. So you can give somebody part of your liver and they can build upon that.
Right.
But again, you're taking these drugs,
right?
Rejection drugs, forever.
Right. There's a lot of work that's right now going into trying to find a way. And I read some things with the possibilities of stem cells and what's kind of with our organs. It's not like our skin. Our skin has a means of repairing itself. A heart, if you take off a piece of heart, it doesn't grow back. And fortunately, that causes some major problems. But there are some things coming up that I think have shown some success, especially in pigs, and believe it or not, in the zebrafish, that they kind of their organs regrow, and so if they can replicate that, and as a way of stimulating the cells around the removed area, to get them to recognize that, okay, we need to rebuild tissue. It kind of happens when you're born, and as your body, and it gets to a point where it stops growing.
Right.
Outside of, when you scrape your knee or your hand or whatever the case may be. There are some attempts to try to get the body to recognize to start working. So if you can get that, well, wow, talking about that would be a game changer. So, in kind of the scenario that I opened up with, they call that mechanical perfusion is the term. And it's basically, it's of a piece of equipment that's basically the size of a small refrigerator that they put these organs in to basically keep them alive. Because one of the other bad parts about organ transplant is the lifespan of an organ from when you remove it from one body, and the time frame to get it into another body is very limited. And it's just what it is, because the minute blood stops flowing to these organs, within a span, depending on the organ, I've read anywhere from 4 to 8, 9 hours, depending on the organ is dead.
It's dead,
yeah.
Right.
So that's the reason they have surgeries at all hours of the night, whenever one is located. So, and once again, if you can rectify that, where you can get an organ inside of a machine where, in essence, it pumps blood to that organ, keep it alive, then, I mean, you talk about it would be incredible as far as that whole nature of getting organ from point A to point B.
Interesting fact there. My friend who had the double lung transplant, as I stated, was a Gulfstream pilot. Mm-hmm. That jet was a volunteer jet that, I don't know, I guess over the course of 25 years, he must have told me about 15 organs that jet would pick up and go deliver somewhere to somebody on the donation list, because it was free. Okay, the owner of the jet said, you can use my jet for this if you need it to go to Dallas or to whatever, California or wherever you need it. And he would fly that with the medical personnel to that hospital so they could do the transplant.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it's...
Because it's that life, it's needed that fast. And there's a group of people that do that to help get those parts to people that need them.
Right.
And he said the kidney is the most transplanted organ worldwide, followed by the liver and the heart.
The kidney's also the most needed.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes I wonder, why is that?
Mm-hmm.
What is it with the kidney? And I kind of start thinking about, it's like, okay, what probably organs of the body take the most abuse by, sometimes by our own hands. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes you're maybe born with a defect there and there's no fault. But I'm just trying to think of what makes those particular organs fail the most. And I probably a lot of it has to do with what we put in our body.
But I was fixing to say the same. These are the filters. The most commonly donated organs are: number 1, kidney; 2, liver; 3, heart; 4, lungs; 5, pancreas; 6, intestines; and 7 is tissue and composite grafts. A lot of that has to do with the filters of the body. Doing something, filtering something out. What are we putting into our body?
We put a lot of bad stuff a lot of times in our body. And
there's in the U.S., there's 89,000 individuals waiting. This is just for kidneys alone. 9,400 needing a liver, and a few, some smaller numbers for hearts and lungs. But 17 people die each day waiting for an organ.
That's crazy.
And someone is added to the national waiting list every 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Can you, that's just, in 2023, over 46,000 organ transplants were performed. 16,000 deceased donors and 7,000 living donors. Remember, I was saying you can be alive and still donate something. Was again saying kidney and liver transplants, mostly 27,000 kidneys and 10,000 livers transplanted in 2023.
Yeah, it seems like the kidney is, it's so disproportionately listed as needing to be changed. And I'm just,
Well, so many things add to that. When I got diabetes, when I caught the diabetes, so to speak, my kidney started tanking because it does something with the insulin resistance.
Right.
There's so many different things that we do and can do to affect different parts of our body. And that's one of the reasons they said I could not be on the donor list for my buddy because,
there's a lot of things that happen, I think, that play into kidney failure, like you're saying, because I think it filters out. If I'm not mistaken, I think it filters out blood, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Kidneys,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So it's one of the filters of the blood.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of things that can cause.
So, I mean, what you put in your body can plays in that. But
right, there's probably a big Venn diagram of like what causes the kidneys to be the ones that
there's also some tissues that can be donated. I got a list of those. The corneas, which is the outer layer of the eye.
Wow.
Which is commonly donated to restore vision. You can donate the whole eye, but only really the cornea is donated. Heart valves, bone, skin, which you kind of mentioned that a little bit. Tendons and ligaments to repair sports or injury-related damages. And veins to help improve blood circulation during surgeries like bypass. And then some other things can be done for research. Eyes, the whole eye, bone marrow, and hands and faces. That can be done using a vestibular composite allograft, which can possibly provide some new possibilities for people with other injuries.
I'm right now. I'm looking at a figure here, a waiting list by age, and this was September of 2024. It seems like the age group with the highest number on that are waiting for a transplant is the age 50 to 64, 43,829 people. Followed by 65 and older, 26,460, and then under that would be 35 to 49, 23,203, and then the numbers go down quite a bit after that. 18 to 34, 8,420, 11 to 17, 960, 6 to 10, 464, and under 5, 642. So pretty recent data. So and I'm pulling this from a website called the Health Resources and Services Administration. So, it goes in and talks about a lot of, and then by another one is by ethnicity. This is 2023 data. 40,476 were white, 28,552 were black, 23,757 were Hispanic Latino, 8,673 were Asian, and then, of course, it really goes down. American Indian, Alaska Native, 901, Pacific Islander, 603, and multiracial, 937. So that's a big drop from kind of the three dominant groups to Asian people. But do y'all know the worldwide who holds the
I'd imagine to be somewhere with like a large population density, but I don't know if that's just...
I mean, transplants have been done. What country claims the most?
Oh,
it would have to be India, Mexico, or the Philippines.
It's actually the United States.
Oh, okay. Well, I meant you said in the world, the world.
Yeah, but the United States, followed by what country? You think?
Mexico?
Spain.
Really?
I'm not so sure about that one because I was looking up some figures on this one too.
Now, I will say this. This was back in 2019 data. It says Spain reaffirmed its global leadership in organ donation during 2019.
Oh, so is it donation or what transplant?
It says, no, in terms of transplant activity in 2019, Spain posted a rate of 117.4 transplants PMP. This is second only to the United States, which posted a figure of 123.4. So, and this is due to the significant live donor transplant activity. So the United States is at the top.
Wow.
But yeah. I'm looking at some data here. Organs that have been successfully transplanted include the heart, kidney, liver, lungs, pancreas, blah, blah, blah. Some organs, like the brain, cannot be transplanted. Really? Sorry about the Texas A&M one. Tissues include bone, tendons, all that stuff. I think, Stoney, kind of touched on that a little bit.
So what do you think a kidney transplant costs?
I would venture to say somewhere around $200,000.
On average, $442,000. How about a liver transplant?
I would venture to say it's probably close to the $500,000 mark.
$878,000. How about a heart transplant?
I'm gonna go with $1 million.
$1.6 million. How about a lung and a double lung transplant?
$2 million.
The double lung, it's right under $1 million for one and 1.6 for a double lung. And then again, on top of that, you've got up to $2,500 in medical, in medicines, post-transplant medicines and stuff, and follow-ups and things like that. Now, in India, the kidney transplant is $15,000 to $25,000. In Mexico and Turkey, liver transplants go from $60,000 to $80,000, and the Philippines, the heart transplant can cost between $30,000 and $60,000.
Wow.
There are some additional risks, doing medical tourism. That a lot of people don't think about, because when you do this to your body, your immune system does take a tank, and the cost savings are significant as a motivator, number one. But patients can face additional risks, including infections, lower donor screening standards. In America, you got to go through a big process to even become a donor. And then just the logistical challenges for your follow-up care. Just because you had it done in another country doesn't mean your doctor here in America is going to follow up on that care. And then there's a lot of ethical concerns, too, as far as the source of the donor organs and things like that. And, some countries have been criticized for exploiting vulnerable, people taking their organs.
You know what ethnicity donates the most organs?
Dead people?
Huh?
Dead people?
No. Oh, no. Well, that's a given.
Yeah.
White individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yep. Historically in the U.S., deceased organ donation among all race ethnicities, minority populations was lower than that of white individuals. So... yeah. But, Stoney, you mentioned about, didn't you mention that you mentioned about adding to the organ donation list every day? They say 5,600 people in the U.S. die each year while on the transplant waiting list. And about 16 per day. That's unfortunate. That's one of the problems with the whole industry. There's not enough people donating organs versus how many people need new organs. So that's actually one of the three major issues right now that whole industry and is facing. We mentioned that supply, the demand outstrips the supply.
Yeah.
Well, I think part of the problem with that is the OPOs, the organ procurement organizations, are under a lot of scrutiny right now for a number of reasons, with some of their ethics, some of their policies, holding on to, organs and things like that. And I don't know if y'all want to get into that, or we can do that later in the show, but there's a lot of mistrust in the system.
Well, I mean, it's, I mentioned during the pre-show that I attended a funeral for my girlfriend had a relative who had passed away. I think it was near 102. But he was a religious brother, but he had donated his body to science. So it's for some reason people are a bit afraid,
right,
to give away their organs after death. But or maybe people are just don't think about it.
Well, think about what you just said. The Egyptians, when they passed, they used to take their organs. They even had a special tool that pulled their brain out through their nostril, and they put their organs in special jars to be buried with, to take them along with them in the next journey.
Right.
And so, especially people of faith and things like that, they don't know. I want my body to rise when the good Lord comes back. I mean, I guess my organs are going to be took care of because I won't need them anymore. But, I could see where there's some skepticism. And now with the, the accountability and some of the allegations on some of the OPOs, there's a problem.
Yep.
Well, they say this is interesting. What culture does not donate organs?
I don't know.
Gypsies.
Gypsies, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I think I've heard that.
They say gypsies are on a whole against donation. Although they have no formal resolution, their opposition is associated with their belief about the afterlife. Kind of talks about kind of touches on what you were talking about with the ancient Egyptians. Gypsies believe that for 1 year after a person dies, the soul retraces its steps. So in essence, it would need its organs.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm talking about religious beliefs. I'm pulling up some data here on religious attitudes about donation.
Yeah, because I feel like there's a lot. I mean, there's always been the debate about like burying versus cremation in like the Christian context, obviously, because for the same reason of like, your body being, raised in the end.
Well, I wanted to be buried for a long time, but now I'm kind of looking at cremation as what I want now, because I'm figuring that's my last chance for a smoking hot body.
I saw it coming. I saw it coming. Yeah. But you're right, though.
How many things, I just spoke to someone. We are going to have an episode coming up, Ask the Mortician. And I can't wait till we delve into a lot of these things, but how we've been buried, like we're talking about with the Egyptians, has changed over the years. In some of the larger cities like New York, they aren't burying people flat 6 feet down now. Now they got a special tool that digs into the earth 12 to 14 feet, and then the caskets are up and down instead of side to side, because we're getting out of room to bury our people. So how we're doing this is changing with the advent of cremation.
Right.
Back in the late 90s, California had to pass a law that says that if you have implants, female implants in the breast, augmentation, that they have to be removed before cremation.
Of course.
Because that doesn't burn, and it melts and covers and destroys the jets in the cremation thing, and that's $15,000 at the time to replace it. So now they had to pass a law to have that removed. So how we bury people is still changing every day.
Yeah.
What's the the bell ringers back, in the 817 and 1800s, your casket had a little bell on it, because they buried so many people that really weren't dead. You could ring the bell and they'd come dig you out of there. So,
yeah, I'm reading this UT Southwestern Medical Center website. It has religious attitudes about donation, and it lists all the various religious traditions. I mentioned about gypsies, but it appears to be most seem to be okay with it as long as the donation is made by the in good faith by the individual,
Mm-hmm.
and it's used for intended purposes and not for just experimentation. I see Islam in 1983. The Muslim Religious Council initially rejected organ donation by the followers of Islam, but it has revised its position, provided donors consent in writing before their deaths. Organs of Muslim donors must be transplanted immediately and not stored in organ banks.
Mm.
And they said now Jehovah's Witnesses, according to the Watchtower Society, the legal corporation for the religion, Jehovah's Witnesses do not encourage organ donation, but believes it's a matter best left to the individual conscience. All organs, tissues, however, must be completely drained of blood before transportation.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, the number of organ donors in the U.S. has steadily increased over the recent decades. And that's reflecting both deceased and living donor programs. In 2023, the U.S. recorded 16,335 deceased donors, continuing a 13-year upward trend. That same year, we saw 6,953 living donators, a slight increase from the previous year. This upward trend increased awareness from improved organ recovery and transportation systems nationwide. So it's still on the upswing, but like Jason said, it's just not enough, and they're not getting to the people that need them.
Mm-hmm.
It says what country has the lowest organ donation rate? It's a country called Myanmar. Myanmar. May have the low,
Miramar?
Myanmar, or whatever it's called, may be the lowest rates of actual deceased donors, PMP, but medical professionals in the country remain motivated and hopeful. Right now, here in the States, California performed the most transplants in 2023, while Vermont performed the fewest.
Wow.
According
Vermont.
to Oregon Procurement and Transplant Network data. The data includes transplants for all organs through December of 2023. So
the amount of statistics on this subject is crazy.
Well, I mean,
imagine
you have to kind of, I could see why keeping stats on this would be very important.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think part of that is that now they're going to have to, because just of the transparency of the OPOs, the organ procurement organizations, who are mismanaging their role horribly bad. You're going to have to keep a tight rein on that, and they're just messing up so many things. Part of that is, as you were talking about the racial inequalities before, patients of color, especially Black and Hispanic individuals, are disproportionately affected by delays and lower transplant rates, despite compromising the significant share of the wait list. And these groups often receive fewer transplants due to inequitable service from the OPOs. They're just not being able to get those organs to the people that need them for whatever reason.
Mm.
Well, I think another fact that I ran across, I'll go ahead and shoot that in there. 90% of Americans support organ donation, but only 50% are registered donors.
I think a lot of it has to do with I don't think people think about it. Unless it's something that's automatic. That's why I kind of mentioned that I think England was moving to a automatic, where you would have to opt out if that's something you did not wish. Which I don't see a problem with that. It looks like Pittsburgh is the transplant capital of the world.
Really?
Yeah. It says surgeons have performed more than 17,000 transplants, establishing Pittsburgh as the organ transplantation capital of the world. You know why? That's interesting.
Is there like a big hospital out there that does it, or is one of like those procurement facilities out there?
I don't know. I have to find if why. I think it had something to do with a particular doctor there.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's kind of cool, though. I mean, I don't know if there is one or a couple of doctors that are just like the best what they do. Like that's just the place to go. But
yeah. Right now I'm trying to pull up states with the highest, lowest number of transplants performed because I'd like to know what.
All right.
Unfortunately, my internet's moving slow, so it's not coming up right now. It's still spinning and thinking. So once it pulls up, I'll be able to give out that information.
You said that Vermont was the least as far as
and California was the most transplants.
Transplants, okay,
right? Which I mean, California is a big state, and
there's just a lot of people.
So it's I think I saw that.
How much of that is population size?
Exactly. I mean, I think California's population was 40 million people.
It's more than Canada, which is wild to think about.
Yeah. I said once again, California performed the most transplants in 2023, while Vermont performed the fewest. The data includes transplants for all organs through December 23rd. 3 states, Idaho, Wyoming, and Montana, had no data.
Wow. Interesting.
There's not a lot of people in Wyoming. Yeah, right, I can kind of see that, but.
Yeah, right now, highest is California at 5. My computer is kind of acting up. Highest and lowest number of transplants performed. So California, after that would be Texas, then New York, Florida, and Ohio. And then the lowest is Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, South Dakota, and North Dakota.
Wow. So it's like a little cluster over there that was like...
yeah.
Which is interesting.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a... yeah, but the topic is interesting, and I would encourage people to register, to be an organ donor, because you never know. I mean, if once you pass, you sure don't have no need for your organs anymore, and if they can help someone else have a decent quality of life, then we can why not?
Right. I am an organ donor, and I never thought that I would actually live this long. But if I were to live to like 102 or 103 years old, I think that would just be insane. But if I did, and if asked why I lived so long, I'm just going to tell somebody that I ate a pine cone every day.
Okay.
A pine cone,
and see how many people would do it just to live that long.
I've actually heard about eating pine bark and not pine cones.
Wow. I'm just going to say I ate a pine cone every day. That's how I lived this long. What was it? George Burns smoked cigars, was a womanizer, and had 4 or 5 drinks every day, and he lived 101, 102 years old. So you never know.
Well, right now they say adult kidney transplantation is perhaps the greatest success among all the procedures. More than 270,000 have been performed since 1970. So, yeah.
That's interesting.
I mean, but they got all this. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So what is the most rejected organ transplant?
Probably the lungs.
He goes, at 5-year post-transplant, 80% of lung,
wow,
60% of heart, and 50% of kidney are affected, while liver are only 10%. So if you need a liver transplant, that's your best. That's your best bet.
And that's like talking about rejection, like the fact that it's like there's like an 80% chance for lungs to reject. Is that what you're talking about?
I guess it's just
the ones that aren't are the filters. The ones that actually work and do something.
Right.
The muscles seem like they have a harder time sticking to it.
The waiting list for each one is how long we'll have to wait to receive a transplant. A kidney is 5 years, a liver 11 months, heart 4 months, a lung 4 months, kidney, pancreas 1.5 years, and pancreas 2 years.
What was the first one you said for 5 years?
Kidney. So if you need a kidney, the average is about 5 year wait.
Out.
Yeah, that's why they mentioned that most people die waiting for.
And that means you're on possibly dialysis,
right?
Trying to filter your blood because the kidney is what filters the blood for you.
Man, that's wild.
Well, there's a lot of call right now for some oversight of the OPOs because when I first brought up this subject for us to discuss, I had just read an article where the OPO had gone in and was trying to take organs of somebody who wasn't dead yet.
Uh-oh.
And I'm like, wait, what? And there's a lot of mismanagement going on by the OPOs, the organ procurement organizations. And there's even some Senate investigations into this right now because of the mismanagement of the OPOs. So, there was a doctor at Memorial Hermann Health System in Texas, where you said is a pretty high one. He was accused of manipulating medical records and altering the organ sharing database to prevent patients from receiving transplant. Families of deceased patients sought legal action, claiming their loved ones were denied life-saving organs due to these unethical actions. And this is one of the scandals that triggered the investigation by federal agencies, leading to the suspension of the hospital's kidney and liver transplant program.
Wow, that's crazy.
What organ is least needed?
Least needed?
Least needed.
Oh, I don't even know.
What's the appendix?
That's it.
Okay.
You got it. It's the appendix. Followed by tonsils, your adenoids, gallbladder, uterus.
Yeah, but you lose your gallbladder and you're in trouble.
Well,
because you ain't going to be able to eat grease for the rest of your life.
You can't eat fat. The thymus gland and the spleen.
Wow.
Are the least.
Those all sound like the organs that people try to get removed, like on a.
Well, I mean, it's if it has to be, sometimes there's no choice.
Of course, right. I just think it's, I find it funny, is what I'm saying. Is like the fact that all the ones that people get removed on a regular basis are the ones that are least likely to get transplanted. The appendix, I've heard. I didn't even know you could. I don't even know why you would transplant an appendix.
You wouldn't transplant it, but you would get it removed.
That's what I'm saying.
A lot of people are getting them removed.
Yeah, it's a
all that is a catch-all. It's like in your sink, you have a little trap, and that catches stuff and allows the smells of the sewer not to come back in. Well, that's all the appendix does. Is the gum you eat, the fingernails you eat, everything gets stuck there, and it just builds up a poison. And it becomes very septic, and when it finally ruptures, you're in trouble.
Yeah, I'm reading here about this, looking at just total numbers here of, it says there were 46,632 organ transplants performed from both living and deceased donors in 2023. This represents an 8.7% increase over 2022 and a 12.7% increase over 2021. Which was the first year with more than 40,000 organ transplants. There were 39,679 organ transplants from deceased donors. So, yeah.
Wow.
It's this would have been a good episode if we could have had somebody on as a guest to talk about this. Because, I mean, listening to some of the TED Talks about, obviously, people or medical doctors and stuff like that are experts in this field, I was just fascinated with listening to the potential future. And kind of harking back to my opening statement, if we can get to a point where we can basically mask these foreign proteins that come into the body via a new organ, and allow it to just operate the way it was intended. I mean, you talk about be a game changer, and there is attempts right now that looks encouraging that may happen in the future. And I'm a firm believer, probably in the next 20 years, I think that issue will be resolved, and I think transplanting will be a lot easier.
We also kind of delved into that, talking about the clones, remember? If you could clone your own body to have organs right there for you that you wouldn't reject.
To me, I was thinking about that and how I would kind of bring that up in this episode.
I did it for you. There you go.
Thank you. But actually, it's a little bit more complicated. I didn't realize that if you, like, for example, you took some cells from a developing organ at birth and put it in some sort of petri dish or lab or some sort of where it would in essence grow. They actually would have to do some things. In essence, they would have to, without for a lack of a better way of explaining it, they would almost have to erect somewhat of an erector set, so to speak, of the organ, because it doesn't just grow the way it needs to grow. There's some guiding force there that makes it actually grow into a heart, grow into kidneys, grow into a liver. So they would have to provide some sort of, in essence, some sort of attachment and guiding mechanism where the cell would grow the way it needs to grow, as if it would grow in a human body developing, which to me is absolutely amazing. That the more and more I was reading about this, the more just in awe of our own human biology, of what it's taken to get where we are, just how complex human biology is. It's an incredible field. As I said, I would have loved to have our listeners have some, we would have had somebody here to really kind of dive into the real technical stuff that is really beyond our capabilities, other than what we can just read, via open source on the internet. But I learned a lot just researching for this episode, and just some of the challenges that people face with organ donation. But right now it's really a short-term fix. It's not a long-term fix, simply because of the complications as time goes on. So beyond that, it's still a fascinating topic, and
one of these days,
interesting to see the future of this technology. So
interesting. Look at all that, huh?
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's
like I was saying before, like the statistics for this kind of stuff is interesting.
It's daunting, though, isn't it?
Because obviously with anything medical, and you have large sample sizes of people, you can really look at a lot of different facets of statistics and numbers and what it all means and that kind of stuff. So
one organ donor can save up to 8 lives, and one tissue donor can improve the lives of up to 100 other people.
Wow.
So if you donate, you're definitely saving somebody, or making someone else's life a lot more, a lot better. So,
well, all right. Anything else you want to touch on before we wrap it up?
That's it. That was interesting.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, for those of you out there who who have listened before, you know how to reach out to us. Retrospect Pod on all the different social medias where you can reach out and give us comments. We have, as I was saying before, and I've said it at the past couple episodes, we have the ability to comment on Spotify as well as YouTube, and I usually try and watch out for some comments coming in that way where you can give us some little more short form responses. We also have the email address, getoffendedtogether@gmail.com, where you could also give us some more long-formed responses if the if the comment boxes don't allow you to fit all your opinions in there.
And we have the website.
And the website as well, yes.
Retrospectpodcast.com.
Good news, as of last week, I was able to get us on Pandora.
Yep.
Yes.
So if anybody has wanted to listen to us on there and hasn't had the ability to, it was a bit of a process, but I think they were migrating it over from some other situation, but I think it's on Pandora and Sirius XM. I think is the two.
I believe that's the two. I was able to pull us up on Pandora. I have not been able to pull us up on Sirius. At least yesterday, I was trying. I was having no luck with it.
Maybe there's something in the back end I got to do. So
could be.
I'll look into it.
But Pandora, I was able to.
Yeah.
I actually was listening to some of our stuff on Pandora.
Yeah.
So.
Well, if you if you listen to that platform and you wish that we were on there, well, here we are. Now we're on there. And with that being said, until next week, thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone. God bless.
Organ donation saves thousands of lives yearly, but not without complications. With organ procurement organizations facing increasing scrutiny and systemic challenges, there's a clear need for oversight and change. Yet ultimately, organ donation is an act of unparalleled generosity. It reminds us in death we can still offer the gift of life. And that's a power worth safeguarding through trust and action. Thank you for hanging out with us today. You're the best. Peace.
Sweet.
Good episode.
What do you think? That was a decent little show, huh?
Yep.
It was almost an hour on the dot.
Come on, really?
I think it was 101.